To Hungary now, where lawmakers voted on Tuesday to extend a state of emergency by 180 days. That means a general election roughly scheduled for April will happen under the strict legal conditions that have allowed incumbent Prime Minister Viktor Orbán to cement his nationalist politics in recent years. Corruption charges against Putin ally Orban, as well as cost of living concerns, have seen his support drop behind the opposition TISZA party.
Budapest, Hungary's capital, has often been where the political mood shifts, with young people in particular driving change.
I'd really like to live in a country where, as a student, we can live and fulfill ourselves freely, where a government would act to increase acceptance and educate the public a bit. It would also be great if the country wasn't being robbed. They should deal with real issues, healthcare, public transport, not to mention education.
It's not just first-time voters. It's easy to find people in the city who are disillusioned with the current system.
I want to feel that this country exists to be there for us and not for the top 10,000. The things that happen, I want to trust that they are happening for me and the people around me.
Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has ruled Hungary for the last 15 years with a supermajority of 2/3 of parliament. But now Péter Magyar and his centre-right TISZA party are leading in many opinion polls. And yet there is a catch. He could win the election and form a government, but to make real change, Magyar would have to win or build a supermajority. That's because Orbán's government introduced a new constitution in 2011, which makes it very hard to change what it calls cardinal laws. 2/3 of parliamentary votes are needed for changes to things like election law, some media regulations, and how judges are appointed. Now, Orbán's government has this 2/3 majority in parliament and made changes in many of these areas. If the governing party loses the election, but the winner doesn't have that majority, Orbán's laws would remain. So how could Péter Magyar score a meaningful win? Some polls suggest as many as 29% are undecided right now. Analysts say this would likely drop significantly by election day, but they could still be crucial. To win them over, Magyar will have to persuade them he can solve their economic problems.
On the one hand, their assessment of the situation would point to voting for the opposition. They're suffering from the difficult economic climate. They also feel that prices are high, wages are low, and the country is stagnating. But a significant portion of them, those who can even decide who would be the better leader, Orban or Magyar, rather choose Orban. For them, the idea hasn't come up yet that there could be an alternative.
We are headed to rural Hungary, where support for Orbán's Fidesz party has traditionally been very strong. Here in Pusztavács, about 2/3 voted for Fidesz in the last election. Families and older people form a key part of Orbán's support, but some are no longer so sure. Jutka says she had hoped things would get better under Fidesz.
I'm undecided, unfortunately, because not everything happened in a way that they promised.
She's weighing up whether to retire from her job at a car parts supplier.
Unfortunately, the salary is very low and the pension won't be much higher either, so it's a very hard decision.
Péter Magyar has been touring smaller towns and rural regions like Pusztavács for months, trying to persuade voters like Jutka that he can offer a better future. On the world stage, if Orbán gets US and Russian presidents to meet in Budapest for Ukraine talks, that could boost his image and his polls. His party has published this AI-generated video of him scoring against Péter Magyar. In 6 months, voters will decide whether to give him a red card or award him another goal.
This report by Fanny Facsar, you saw her there in the report, and she joins me now from Budapest. Fanny, 6 months ahead of the election, Hungary is deeply polarized. Walk us through what's at stake here.
the future of this country, the future of Hungary is at stake in the upcoming elections, which is to take place in 6 months from now. And the question, do people here in Hungary want more of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who's been governing for more than a decade, for the past 15 years, or can they imagine an alternative? And at least looking at current poll numbers, very much looks like they can, because for the very first time in over a decade, the governing Fidesz party is actually trailing behind in many polls with regard to the biggest opposition party, the centre-right TISZA party, which existed a few years ago but was just registered for the European parliamentary elections last year. So we're speaking about a very, very young party, and we're speaking about very different visions for this country when you talk to people who support either Fidesz, the Fidesz party, or the centre-right TISZA party, or all the other parties that exist as well. And I think the main difference here, also speaking about the European Union, is that while Prime Minister Viktor Orbán tries to portray the European Union that Hungary is a part of as a bloc that wants to dictate what Hungary is supposed to do, and as a result, in the view of the government, is the sovereignty of Hungary may be at stake. The TISZA party is saying we need a strong EU. We actually have to have a vision together to be able to make crucial foreign decisions. Just a reminder to the viewer, I'm in Hungary, just a few hundred kilometers away is a war going on in Ukraine. So certainly foreign policy plays a role when people will make up their minds next year. But not only, there are a lot of undecided voters, in fact. And one of the biggest questions that people propose, in fact, regardless who they support, is the economy. Just how much more is going to be chipped away in their purse with regard to their income when it comes to inflation. So there's a lot at stake, and however, there's still 6 months to go. As a result, we just have to see how things are going to move on. Certainly, this proposed controversial summit by US President Donald Trump, which is not taking place, at least in the immediate future in Hungary, put the Hungarian government back to center stage, but we just really have to see what the communication is moving forward, both by the government and by opposition parties.
DW Senior International Correspondent Fanny Facsar in Budapest. Thank you so much for your reporting, Fanny.